Kill your laziness. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about an enemy we all know far too well: laziness. It's sneaky, silent, and deadly. It disguises itself as comfort, tells you to rest when you should be rising, and convinces you that tomorrow is a better time to start. But let me tell you this: tomorrow is a lie if today is wasted. Laziness doesn't just slow you down, it steals your potential. It steals your potential. It robs you of discipline, weakens your drive, and leaves you with regret. Every time you choose the couch over your goals, you give laziness more power, and it will not stop until it takes everything. But here's the truth: laziness is not stronger than you. It's not in your DNA, it's a habit, and habits can be broken. Discipline is not a gift, it's a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to get up again and again and again and again, even if it's hard, especially when it's hard. So today, make a choice. Not for tomorrow, right now. Get up, show up, fight back, kill your laziness before it kills your dreams. Thank you. Laziness is a unique kind of enemy, not one that storms the gates or announces itself with force, but one that slides quietly into your life, wearing the mask of comfort. It whispers to you in moments of fatigue, stress, or indecision. It tells you to sit down a little longer, to postpone your goals for just one more day, to trade your ambition for an illusion of peace. You don't recognize it as a threat because it doesn't look like one. It looks like rest. Rest. It feels like relief, but slowly, stealthily, it begins to chip away at the edges of your potential, your dreams, and your identity. The most dangerous thing about laziness is that it never feels like the enemy. It disguises itself as self-care, persuading you that you need to wait until you feel more motivated or more prepared. It convinces you that you'll perform better tomorrow, that there's still time, that it's okay to take it easy today. It doesn't scream at you. It seduces you. And by the time you realize you've been misled, you've lost time, days, weeks, even years. Chasing ease instead of excellence. It's critical to understand that laziness is not just about doing nothing. It's about doing less than you're capable of. You can be busy and still be lazy if you're avoiding the hard work that truly matters. You can be constantly active, yet consistently unproductive if what you're doing is a distraction from your higher goals. That's why laziness is so difficult to identify. It hides behind excuses, behind tasks that don't challenge you, behind habits that offer comfort but cost growth. And the worst part, it slowly lowers your standards. What you once called is lacking off becomes your new normal. What you once considered a wasting time now feels like a break you deserve. This enemy thrives in the absence of clarity and purpose. When you don't have a strong vision or a clear goal, laziness finds it easy to take control. Without a sense of direction, your energy has nowhere to go. So it settles into the path of least resistance. That's when you start defaulting to the couch instead of the gym, the scrolling instead of the studying, the talking instead of the doing. You start bargaining with your potential, trading long-term success for short-term ease. And because the effects aren't immediate, because laziness kills slowly, you don't always notice what you're losing until it's gone. Laziness is not always loud, but its consequences are. When you let it rule your life, you start to feel it in every area: your health, your career, your relationships. The projects stay unfinished. The opportunities pass you by. The body gets weaker, the mind duller, the dreams more distant. And the longer it stays, the harder it becomes to break free. Laziness creates inertia, a powerful force that resists movement. The more time you spend inactive, the harder it feels to act. The more you avoid the uncomfortable, the more comfortable the avoidance becomes. Before long, you aren't just lazy in your actions. You begin to think like a lazy person, to speak like one, to make decisions like one. It seeps into your identity. What makes laziness particularly destructive is how often we rationalize it. I'll do it later. I deserve a break. I'm too tired. These thoughts sound reasonable, even responsible. But ask yourself, how often is a later just another word for a never? How often does the break turn into an entire evening lost to YouTube or social media? How often is your tiredness physical? And how often is it just mental resistance to doing something hard? The truth is, laziness isn't just about energy. It's about emotion. It's about fear, doubt, and the discomfort of growth. It tells you to avoid the struggle, but what it's really doing is keeping you small. We often underestimate the cost of laziness because we measure it in minutes lost instead of meaning lost. But time is not the only thing laziness takes from you. Fortinda. It also steals self-respect. Every time you choose laziness over effort, a part of you feels it. A part of you knows you could have done more, tried harder, pushed further. And that knowledge quietly erodes your confidence. You begin to distrust your own word. You say you'll start tomorrow, but you don't believe it anymore because you've broken that promise too many times before. Over time, your self-image suffers. You stop seeing yourself as a driven, capable person. You start identifying with procrastination, calling yourself lazy as if it were your personality, not your pattern. But it's not your identity. Laziness is not who you are, it's a habit you've accepted. And because it's a habit, it can be broken. But first, it must be exposed. You must stop calling it rest when it's really avoidance. You must stop pretending it's harmless when it's slowly costing you everything you care about. You have to see it for what it is, a barrier between who you are and who you want to become. Sometimes people say laziness is caused by lack of motivation, but that's only part of the truth. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. What matters more is discipline, doing the work even when you don't feel like it. Laziness thrives when you wait to feel ready. It disappears when you act in spite of your feelings. You don't overcome laziness by thinking your way out of it. You kill it by moving through it. Taking action, even small, imperfect action, is the antidote. When you act, you build momentum. When you build momentum, you shift your identity. Stop seeing yourself as someone who waits and start seeing yourself as someone who works. This isn't about becoming a machine or rejecting rest. True rest is essential, but it's earned through effort, not used as an excuse to avoid it. There's a difference between rest and escape. Rest restores you. Escape drains you. Rest refuels your energy. Escape numbs your ambition. One empowers you, the other enslaves you. If you want to kill laziness, you must learn to tell the difference and choose accordingly. Most importantly, you have to reconnect with your why. When your purpose is strong, laziness loses its power. When you know what you're fighting for, whether it's your health, your dreams, your future, or your family, you gain the strength to resist the comfort that laziness offers. Remember that the pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret can last a lifetime. Laziness is cunning. It knows how to speak your language. It knows your weaknesses. It knows how to convince you to pause, to wait, to surrender. But you don't have to listen. You don't have to listen. You don't have to obey. You can fight back one choice at a time. And every time you choose effort over ease, action over apathy, purpose over passivity, you take back control. You become who you were meant to be, not who laziness convinced you to settle for. Laziness doesn't just delay your progress. It robs you of your potential bit by bit, day by day. It's not loud or dramatic. It doesn't crash into your life all at once. Instead, it creeps in slowly, hiding behind comfort and convenience, making you believe that you're just taking a break or waiting for the right time. But what it's really doing is stealing something far more valuable than your minutes or hours. It's stealing your future. Potential is a powerful thing. It's the energy of what could be. It's the untapped strength, the unused creativity, the unrealized goals, and the unexplored dreams living inside of you. It's your capacity to grow, achieve, and make an impact. But potential is not permanent. It has an expiration date. And the tragedy is that many people will go to their graves full of potential they never used, books they never wrote, businesses they never started, talents they never developed, relationships they never nurtured. Laziness is a master at making sure that potential stays locked away. It whispers that you're too tired, too late, too unsure. It tells you that you're not ready, that it's okay to wait a little longer, one more hour, one more day, one more excuse. And slowly, without realizing it, you drift away from your own greatness. What could have been a powerful life becomes an average one, not because you lacked the ability, but because you allowed laziness to make your decisions. You see, laziness doesn't always look like lying in bed all day or refusing to work. Sometimes it's hidden in passive routines, in scrolling endlessly through your phone, in binge watching content that doesn't feed your mind, in talking about your goals more than working on them. It often shows up as busy work, tasks that feel productive but don't move you forward. You might look like you're doing something, but deep down, you know you're avoiding the real work. The scary thing is that laziness feels good in the moment. That's why it's so seductive. It gives you immediate comfort, immediate relief. You don't have to deal with the struggle, the discomfort, or the fear of failure. But that comfort is temporary. The cost, however, is long-term. What you gain in ease today, you lose in fulfillment tomorrow. Every time you delay action, your potential becomes harder to reach. It fades not because it's gone, but because you've moved further away from it. When you let laziness rule your life, you begin to shrink your vision. You stop dreaming big because big dreams require big effort. You start telling yourself stories like, maybe I'm not meant for this, or it's too late, or someone else is probably better at it anyway. But those thoughts aren't truth. They're just the side effects of unused potential. Your mind starts trying to protect you from the shame of not trying by pretending that trying never mattered in the first place. What people often fail to realize is that the pain of wasted potential is much greater than the pain of effort. Yes, it's hard to push yourself when you're tired, to work when you don't feel like it, to keep going when you're not seeing results right away. But that effort shapes you. It strengthens you. It builds your confidence and reveals parts of yourself you never knew. Laziness, on the other hand, keeps you comfortable but unfulfilled, safe but stagnant, at peace on the surface but restless underneath. Over time, laziness doesn't just impact your achievements, it begins to shape your identity. You stop seeing yourself as a doer, as someone who follows through. You begin to lose faith in your own abilities because you've spent so much time ignoring them. You start to believe that maybe you're just average, just ordinary, but it's not because you are. It's because you've let laziness convince you to settle for less. Potential is not a guarantee. It's a gift, but it's also a responsibility. It's not enough to be talented or intelligent or full of ideas. If you don't put in the work, if you don't take action, then your potential becomes a kind of burden. It starts to weigh on you. You feel it in your chest, in your regrets, in those quiet moments when you wonder what your life could have been if you just committed a little more, tried a little harder, pushed through the resistance just a little longer. One of the cruelest things about laziness is that it often disguises itself as self-preservation. I need to rest, you tell yourself. I don't want to burn out. And while rest is important, there's a vast difference between resting and avoiding. Rest is intentional. It's a pause with purpose. Avoidance is a silent surrender. It's not designed to heal you. It's designed to delay you. And while you wait for the perfect conditions, life continues moving. Opportunities come and go. And before long, you look back and wonder where the time went and what you have to show for it. We live in a world that often glorifies ease and convenience. Everything is built to be faster, simpler, more automated. But your potential is not something that can be unlocked by shortcuts. It requires depth. It requires commitment. It requires you to engage in the hard, unglamorous, sometimes boring work that no one sees. It's forged in early mornings, late nights, and the discipline to do the work even when there's no applause, no rewards, no instant gratification. And make no mistake, every time you choose effort over laziness, you're not just making progress on your goals, you're reclaiming your potential. You're proving to yourself that you're more than your comfort zone, more than your doubts, more than your doubts, more than your excuses. You're shaping your future by showing up in the present. But the more you delay, the more comfortable you become in your current state. The harder it gets to climb out of it. Laziness is not just a momentary feeling. It's a mindset. And once it sets in, it becomes a lens through which you see the world. You start to expect less from yourself, and in turn, you accept less from life. You must recognize that the world is not going to wait for you to feel ready. Life moves on. Opportunities don't pause. And no one is coming to save you from your own inaction. The responsibility to act is yours. The responsibility to fight through your own resistance belongs to no one else. Potential is powerful, but it's not eternal. It must be used, cultivated, challenged, and transformed into something real, an record. Otherwise, it becomes a haunting reminder of what could have been. Laziness will always offer you the easy road, but that road leads nowhere. It ends in frustration, in unfulfilled dreams, in the painful awareness that you had what it took, but didn't do what it takes. The fight against laziness is the fight for your potential. It's the fight for your future self. It's the difference between living a life of reaction and living a life of intention. It's the difference between wondering what you could have done and actually doing it. And though it may be hard, uncomfortable, and inconvenient, it is always worth it. Laziness is not your identity. It's not a personality trait carved into your DNA. It's not who you are. It's what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you repeatedly choose. The problem is we often blur the line between behavior and identity. We confuse our habits with our nature. When we procrastinate, skip responsibilities, or avoid challenges, we begin to say things like, "I'm just a lazy person," as if that statement defines us. But it doesn't. It describes a pattern, not a person. And any pattern can be broken if you're willing to confront it for what it is. There's a quiet danger in internalizing laziness as part of your character. The moment you begin to identify with it, you make it permanent. You stop seeing it as a problem to solve and start seeing it as a truth to accept. You lower your expectations, shrink your goals, and avoid discomfort because you believe you're not the type of person who can push through. This belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself you're lazy, your actions will match that belief. Not because it's true, but because your mind works tirelessly to validate what you believe about yourself. We must separate our behavior from our identity. Everyone has moments of laziness. Everyone has days when they feel unmotivated or overwhelmed. That's human. But occasional laziness doesn't make you a lazy person. It makes you normal. The problem arises when you stop treating it as something to overcome and start treating it as something that defines you. When you do that, you give laziness more power than it actually has. You let it become the architect of your habits, your routine, and eventually your future. This is where choice comes in. You may not be responsible for every circumstance in your life, but you are responsible for how you respond. You have the power to decide what you will and won't allow. You have the power to say, "This is not who I want to be," and take steps to change. Change doesn't begin with action. It begins with decision. You decide you're no longer okay with mediocrity. You decide to stop letting laziness dictate your day. You decide that the person you are is not limited to the person you've been. This is one of the most freeing realizations you can have, that you are not fixed. You are not a finished product. You are not bound by your past patterns. Your mind, your habits, your lifestyle, they're all moldable. You can rewire your thoughts. You can reprogram your routines. You can redefine your identity by changing what you do consistently. This means you can build discipline even if you've never had it. You can become productive even if you've wasted years procrastinating. You can become someone who gets things done, who sets goals and follows through, who resists the easy path in favor of the right one. But first, you have to take ownership. That's the hard part. It's easier to blame our upbringing, our circumstances, or our personality type. It's easier to say, "That's just how I am," than to say, "That's how I've allowed myself to be." But there is no growth in blame. There is no power in avoidance. Ownership is the first step toward change. When you stop seeing laziness as who you are and start seeing it as something you've permitted, you take back the authority to change it. This also means taking a hard look at your daily choices. Are you reinforcing the version of yourself that you no longer want to be? Every snoozed alarm, every skipped workout, every unfulfilled commitment, they all send a message to your subconscious. They reinforce the idea that your words don't matter, that your goals are optional, that comfort is more important than progress. But every time you resist laziness, even in small ways, you send a different message. You begin to rewrite the narrative. You say, I may not have been disciplined in the past, but I am becoming someone who is. This process is not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about catching yourself when old patterns creep in and choosing differently. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Growth always is. But discomfort is not a signal to stop. It's a sign that you're moving beyond the limitations you've previously accepted. Discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. Part of the problem is that laziness is often tied to emotion. It's not just physical inaction, it's emotional resistance, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. These emotions paralyze us. So instead of facing them, we numb them with distraction. We avoid the work, the conversation, the decision. We label ourselves as lazy, but what we're really doing is avoiding pain. That's why laziness is rarely solved with more motivation. It's solved with courage, the courage to face discomfort, the courage to act in spite of fear, the courage to break a pattern that's no longer serving you. To do this, you must build a new internal narrative. You must begin to speak to yourself like someone who has potential, who is capable of change, who can rise above old limitations. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to take giant leaps every day. But you do need to stop feeding the belief that this is all you'll ever be. You are not your mistakes. You are not your mistakes. You are not your weakest habits. You are what you choose to fight for. Begin by defining who you want to become. Be specific. Do you want to be someone who follows through? Someone who gets up early and attacks the day? Someone who doesn't let excuses win? Once you have a vision of that person, start acting like them today. Not when it's convenient. Not when you feel ready. Now. Because that version of you doesn't arrive through waiting. It arrives through action. Each decision is a vote for the person you want to be. You may not win every vote. Some days you'll fall short, but that's okay. You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming for transformation. And transformation is built through repetition, through showing up even when it's hard, through trying again even when you failed, through refusing to let your past define your future. Laziness is powerful, but it's not invincible. It can be unlearned. It can be replaced. The key is consistency, not in being perfect, but in refusing to quit. The more you practice showing up, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you stop having to force it. It becomes who you are, not because you were born that way, but because you decided to become that way. This shift from I'm just lazy to I'm someone who's learning to be disciplined is the foundation of personal growth. It's the mindset that fuels change. It's the mindset that breaks cycles. Because when you stop identifying with laziness, you stop feeding it. And when you stop feeding it, you make space for something greater: discipline, purpose, progress. You have to believe that you are capable of more, not because someone else tells you so, but because you've decided to believe it yourself. And belief alone isn't enough. It must be followed by action. But belief is where it begins. If you can believe that laziness is not who you are, but simply what you've allowed up until now, then you've already taken the first step toward reclaiming your power. Most people wait for motivation to strike before they take action. They sit around hoping for that burst of energy, that wave of inspiration, that perfect emotional moment when everything aligns, and they suddenly feel ready to do the hard things. But the truth is, that moment rarely comes. And when it does, it's short-lived. Motivation is fleeting. It's unreliable. It shows up when it wants and disappears when you need it most. That's why those who depend on motivation to build their lives, their habits, or their goals are constantly trapped in cycles of inconsistency. What actually creates change, lasting, sustainable, meaningful change, is discipline. Discipline is the muscle that gets stronger every time you use it. It's the internal engine that keeps going regardless of how you feel. It's showing up when you don't feel like it. It's doing the work even when no one's watching. It's waking up early when your body wants to sleep in. It's saying no to distractions when your mind craves escape. It's choosing growth over comfort again and again. Unlike motivation, discipline doesn't rely on emotion. It doesn't ask, do I feel like doing this? It says, I do this because I said I would. It's rooted in commitment, not convenience. When you train yourself to be disciplined, you take control away from your ever-changing emotional state and give it to a deeper sense of purpose. You stop being a slave to your moods and start becoming the master of your actions. People often glorify motivation because it feels good. When you're motivated, you're energetic, excited, focused. Everything feels possible, but that feeling fades. Life gets in the way. You get tired, bored, distracted. You hit resistance, hump butts. And if you haven't built discipline, you'll fall apart the moment that emotional high disappears. That's why so many people start things but never finish. They launch into projects with a burst of energy, only to give up when things get hard. They start a fitness routine, a business plan, a personal goal, but once motivation runs dry, so does their effort. Discipline is what bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. It keeps you going when everything else tells you to quit. It's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about refusing to stop just because the process isn't easy or exciting. The truth is, most progress happens in moments of boredom, fatigue, and discomfort. That's where discipline steps in. It tells you to keep going anyway, to push through, to honor your commitments long after the mood you made them in has disappeared. And this isn't just about success in a general sense. It applies to every area of your life. Want to get in shape? You won't always feel like going to the gym. Want to build a business? You won't always feel like working on your product or reaching out to clients. Want to grow spiritually, emotionally, intellectually? You won't always feel like reading, reflecting, meditating, or learning. The feelings will fluctuate, but your commitment shouldn't. That's the difference discipline makes. Building discipline isn't glamorous. It's not fueled by dramatic transformation stories or emotional speeches. It's built in silence, in private moments when no one is cheering you on. It's built when you choose to act instead of making another excuse. It's built when you drag yourself out of bed, put your shoes on, and do the work. Whether it's running, writing, studying, or grinding. It's built when you stop waiting for ideal conditions and start doing what needs to be done right now. It starts small. Discipline is not about overnight perfection. It's about daily intention. It's about showing up consistently, even if it's just for 5 minutes at first. It's about choosing structure over chaos, effort over ease. And each time you follow through on something you said you'd do, you build trust with yourself. That self-trust is critical. When you know you'll do what you say, no matter how you feel, you begin to see yourself differently. You start to see yourself as someone reliable, capable, and strong. This shift in identity is powerful. When you stop identifying as someone who gives up and start identifying as someone who follows through, everything changes. Your self-image becomes your strongest ally instead of your biggest obstacle. And that identity is not forged through motivation. It's forged through repetition. Through daily proof, through showing up over and over again, it becomes who you are, not just what you do. There's also a sense of freedom that comes from discipline. At first glance, discipline can seem restrictive, like a rigid set of rules. But in reality, discipline creates space. It removes the constant mental negotiation about whether or not to do something. It eliminates the energy you waste trying to decide. When you're disciplined, you don't need to argue with yourself every day about going to the gym, writing that report, studying, or eating healthy. So, you've already decided it's non-negotiable. That clarity frees up your mind to focus on bigger things. Discipline is also a form of self-respect. It's saying to yourself, I am worth the effort. My goals matter. My future is important. Every disciplined choice is a declaration that you refuse to be controlled by laziness, distraction, or short-term comfort. It's an act of rebellion against mediocrity. It's how you prove to yourself that your vision for your life is not just a fantasy. It's a mission worth fighting for. The good news is that discipline is trainable. It's not something you either have or don't have. It's something you build through repeated action. The more you act with discipline, the easier it becomes. You create neural pathways that support that behavior. You develop routines and systems that reinforce that identity. Over time, you don't have to force it. It becomes your new default. Of course, there will be setbacks. You'll miss days. It says, you'll miss days. You'll feel burned out. You'll stumble. But discipline doesn't mean never failing. It means never staying down. It means getting back up and recommitting. It means recognizing that progress is messy and nonlinear. You're not trying to be a robot. You're trying to be a robot. You're trying to be resilient. And resilience is what carries you when motivation disappears and everything feels like a struggle. This is where most people give up. They hit that wall, the place where progress slows, where the excitement wears off, where the grind sets in, and they think something's wrong. Stepping outside the comfort zone doesn't mean you have to leap into chaos. It means you begin to stretch. You do what's unfamiliar. You take small, calculated risks. You face discomfort, not because you like it, but because you understand what it leads to: growth.